placed on the council's website. I'm going to ask Julie for the said written apologies, please, Julie.
Thank you and good morning, members. Provost Jim Todd.
Here.
Councillor Stephen Canning.
Present, thanks.
Councillor Ellen Friel.
I'm here, Julie, thank you.
Councillor John McFadden.
I'm here, thank you.
Councillor John McGee.
Yeah.
Councillor Elaine Cowan.
Here.
Councillor Maureen Mackay.
Present.
Councillor David Richardson.
Present, Julie.
Councillor James Adams. Councillor Lillian Jones.
Here, Julie.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Linton.
Here.
Councillor Douglas Reid.
Here.
Councillor Graham Barton.
Here.
Councillor Graham Boyd.
Here, Julie, thanks.
I have an apology from Councillor Barry Douglas. Councillor Neil Ingram.
Here, Julie, thanks.
Councillor Peter Maben.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Claire Maitland.
Here.
Councillor Beverly Clark.
Here.
Councillor Sally Cogley.
Here.
Councillor Kevin McGregor.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Linda Holland.
Here, thanks, Julie.
Deputy Provost Claire Leach.
Here, Julie, cheers.
Councillor William Lennox.
On and here.
Councillor Alison Simmons.
Here.
Councillor Billy Crawford. Councillor June Kyle.
Present.
Councillor Jim McMahon.
Julie, thanks.
Councillor Neil Watts.
Good morning, Julie. I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Drew Filson.
Yeah.
Councillor Jennifer Hogg.
Yes, I'm here, thank you.
And Councillor Elaine Stewart.
Yep, here, thanks, Julie.
Thanks, members.
Thanks very much, Julie. Folks, before we start, a couple of wee comments. We were at the Yup World Project on Tuesday the 2nd of April, the Small World Project. It was great to meet young folk from Northern Ireland, Dumfries and Galloway and the borders, along with all of our lovely young folk from Yup World. It was in the new Clydesdale, the old Clydesdale Bank new restaurant, and it was great to meet some lovely young folk who've got some great ideas on how to make the world a better place. So good for them. We had Young Carers Employability Graduation Ceremony at the Dean Castle on the 5th of April. It was great to see all those young folk that have come through really difficult times in their lives, and the confidence that they have gained will surely stand them in good stead. And also at the Dean Castle, what a wonderful venue now, lovely in the courtyard. It was a performance by young musicians from Barcelona, and it was great to hear some of the classical music at the Dean. The acoustics in there is great now, so please go along and visit. And finally, myself and Claire went along to Kulmbach, which is the 50th anniversary this year of the original town twinning in 1974 between Kilmarnock and Kulmbach. We travelled all day on the Friday. I arrived there to a very warm welcome from the staff and residents, especially Oberbürgermeister Ingo Lehmann. The weather was a brilliant weekend. Kulmbach's a beautiful town for anybody that's been. I know David has, to the beer festival. And we met up some old friends from the Kulmbach Motorcycle Club. We met many people from different organisations and had a grand tour of the town, the Plassenburg Castle, which sits above the town. And as part of the town twinning commemorations of 50 years, I signed the Golden Book with the Oberbürgermeister, and it was great to see the original signature from 50 years ago. We had a wonderful time meeting all the residents, and it was good to see in what ways we can continue to have this special relationship. The lovely East Ayrshire Council extends the same welcome to Ingo to come here for a visit. Thanks, folks. I'm going to start the meeting, if that's okay, and I'll ask for declarations of interest on today's business. I think we're all okay. On to item 2, and this is the previous minutes, and we'll submit for approval for the correct record of the council meeting of the 28th of March, pages 3 to 6, and I move as a correct minute.
Second, Provost.
Thank you very much, Claire. Are there any questions, folks? Leader.
Not great. It's just to point out, maybe for public information, in terms of the village and the Lost Villages exhibition. It was great not just to see the exhibition in terms of Lost Villages, but commemorating the anniversary of the miners' strike. as well, you know, because I know we've had a lot of discussion in here. The exhibition was absolutely, you know, it was really, really interesting. And I know it attracted a lot of folk, but just, you know, for people's interest, that was there as well.
Good, good. Yeah, it's really incredible when you go there and you're meeting living people who remember a lot of the stuff that's on the screens. So living memory, brilliant exhibition. Thanks. We okay, folks? Going to item 3, and this is the Cabinet Committee minutes. And I'll bring in the leader.
Just proves the correct record, Provost.
Second that, Provost.
Thank you very much. Any questions to these minutes? Nobody online? No. Thank you very much. Go to item 4, and this is the Boundaries Scotland revised proposals for Scottish Parliament constituency boundaries, pages 44 to 47. I will bring in David to introduce this. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Provost. Morning, members. Just to recap then, the Boundary Commission carried out a review, as they do from time to time periodically, and they came forward initially with proposals to take part of the Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley constituency and move it over into the Cunningham South constituency. Effectively, it was everything to, forgive my geography, the north and northwest of Kilmore-Stewarton and that part of the East Ayrshire boundary. Those proposals came forward, we brought them to Council. Council's considered position was, in general principle, that Council didn't support the overall proposals. Council didn't believe that the historical, geographical history and the circumstances were such that the linkage was there, and basically Council's position was these aren't really very good proposals, they're not really acceptable, and they seem to ignore all of the history and the geography and indeed all the considerations that are set out within the parameters that the Boundary Commission themselves follow. The Council put forward that position. The Boundary Commission came back with the indication they were willing to modify and minded to modify the proposals at that stage, and the modifications were to address certain specific issues the Council raised. Firstly was including Kilmore's was particularly nonsensical. And also it tipped the balance because it's back to that 59,000 and odd ideal average electorate. And what the original proposals were going to do was remove an imbalance in one direction for the Kilmarnock and Irvine constituency and possibly just replicate that in the other direction, but not actually bring us much closer to that 59,000 and so figure. The effect of the modifications was to take Kilmore's out of the original proposals and leave it in Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley, and also to withdraw elements of the original proposals that were seen as with split polling districts, which in election terms is just not a very good thing. So they came back and said they were minded to make those modifications. We brought that back to Council, and the Council's position was, notwithstanding the modifications, taking out Kilmore's and addressing the split polling districts, Council was still minded to object. That then triggered a public local inquiry, and some of you were there, and we went to the Park Hotel along with other interested parties, and we represented the Council's position. The Council was the only part of the inquiry that didn't have a view on better alternatives, and that's the nub of this. If we don't like the proposals, then if we're not putting forward at least what we consider to be better alternatives, then in order to manage expectation, we need to understand that if the Boundary Commission aren't minded to do nothing, then anything that they put forward is likely to occur unless we can come up with something better. And I've no proposals to put forward in that regard. The Sheriff Principal kind of took the same view. If you've looked at what he had to say, in essence, what he said was, well, there's a whole range of options being put forward. And there was one individual at the inquiry supporting 3 of them, which was interesting. But what the Sheriff Principal said was, well, they all have merit. They're all within the rules. They all apply the parameters. And he wasn't minded to make any particular recommendation at that inquiry or in the back of that inquiry to the Boundary Commission. So he left it to them effectively. What the Boundary Commission have now come back with formally is the same modified proposal. So it's put everything into Cunningham South apart from Kilmore's and avoiding the split polling districts. In terms of what happens next, then if this council's minded to object again, it will trigger another public local inquiry. But as I've said and hopefully stressed, unless we are sitting at that public local inquiry advocating a far better alternative proposal, then going in with a do-nothing option is just going to waste everyone's time and money and resources, because the likelihood of the Boundary Commission at the third attempt withdrawing these proposals and opting for the do-nothing model is negligible, if indeed non-existent. So it's against that backdrop we're bringing it here as an update. I think what Council should know is that Council has secured reasonable and indeed I think required modifications. Ironically, the impact in the modifications is to bring the revised constituencies as the proposals currently stand closer to that 59,200 odd figure. So actually they're better proposals than the Boundary Commission started with. So although we didn't like them through objecting, we've actually at least helped make them a little bit better. So that's the kind of position that sits with Council today. We have to bring it to Council because it's Council that's been asked to consider its position and take a decision. And the advice sitting alongside the paper is quite clearly that the Council should no longer continue to object purely in principle, and if the Council were minded to object, then it would be helpful to have a clear statement of what we consider to be a viable alternative, a better alternative proposal that this Council as a whole is prepared, or at least as a majority is prepared to put its name to. I'm not sure if such a proposal exists, and I'm certainly not sure if there's any better alternatives than the other ones that were already been put forward at the public inquiry, considered the sheriff principle and ultimately left by him, and that's quite entirely appropriate by him for the Boundary Commission to consider. So they've already considered all the alternatives that were put forward, and they are coming forward with, as I say, what is effectively their original proposals, but with fairly significant modifications that actually address some of the Council's concerns and actually improve the impact of the proposals. So it's against that backdrop, Chair and members, we present the paper, and effectively I'm looking for Council to take a decision whether or not to continue to object, while noting that my best advice would be there are no grounds or basis in which to object, and if we occasion a second public inquiry, which is automatic if we object, I think there's a risk there that we are going to look foolish because we're simply going back saying no, we don't like it. There's the risk of reputational damage, and there's no other risks in terms of financial of that other than the time to go along and present a position at a further inquiry. In essence and in summary, Chair and members, I think the Council has stood its ground. I think the Council has contributed to a process. I think that has secured improvements to the proposals. They may not be ideal, but they are on the table, and unless Council can devise and instruct me to go and argue for a better approach than any of the ones on the table just now, then I think a further objection would be futile. Thanks, Chair. Prost.
Thanks, David. I'll open it up, folks. Leader.
Thanks, David. I think your explanation is very good, sums up the position of where we are. I mean, in terms of our group, I think we're very much still in favour of keeping Commandant Loudon as it is. We're supportive of that position. As you said, this is a bit better, but that's where we are. But you're saying there is a risk here in terms of reputational risk to the Council and a financial waste of money for our officers and just for the public purse. But it is quite shameful in terms of the ANIC ward had been split in this way in terms of the historical and cultural risks, and again, it's driving about probably in terms of population growth between Lawthorne and Stewarton and Dunlop. And Girdle Toll, it's probably the fastest growing areas in Ayrshire, and I think time will reveal that when we see the population of Cunningham South grow, even within the next 5 to 10 years, and we're back here again reconsidering the boundaries again. But I suppose we've got to take cognizance of what you're saying, David, and I don't know, in terms of the risk, could there be a possible risk of losing the gains that we've had that make it a wee bit better in terms of the landward area and particular Kilmores?
I suppose technically there may be, but I think that the Boundary Commission have now come forward with these at the previous stage, and having been through a public inquiry, I would suggest they've confirmed their position and their support for, or their support and their consideration of that proposal. I don't think you would lose the modifications. It's not a trade-off or a negotiation. I just think fundamentally for those members that attended the public inquiry, that would be the emptiest of empty exercises to be sitting back down there and basically maintaining the same objection with nothing additional to say to what we said the last time. We've nothing to add to what we were able to put forward the last time, and therefore it would just be an exercise in futility. And that's where the reputational damage would come in, when people look and saying, why are they objecting if they've got nothing better to put on the table? And I don't want to make that the issue. I think the status quo isn't an alternative option. It's a do nothing option, and it's quite clear the Boundary Commission aren't minded to do nothing, because we've had that round now 3 times with them.
Listen to the debates. I suppose when we're in a position, we have to accept the current position, though we are strongly minded to, our concerns of, ignoring some of our objections, they still stand in terms of cultural links within ANIC and our concerns about population growth not being taken into cognizance.
Through you, Provost, what we can do is not just a straight choice between, and just to clarify my own advice, it's not a straight choice between object or support. We can go back and confirm we're not maintaining a formal objection, but for the record, this council remains of the view that 1, this isn't the best fit, and 2, the Boundary Commission will likely be back revisiting this in light of the expected population growth in early course anyway. But we can make those points for the record, whether or not, well, not whether or not they won't have any impact, the Boundary Commission, but at least our position's there, that we're not, by not objecting, we're not actually supporting them, we're just accepting that's what's coming.
Thank you. Councillor McGee.
Thanks, Provost. I think when this was first mooted, we knew that the status quo wasn't an alternative. And I think Chief Governing Officer made a very good case, Ken, at the public local hearing. I would have agreed with the leader of the council regarding the increase in growth at Lawthorne, etc. But I think the answer to that was that despite that growth, that area remains static in its increase in population, so the entire population isn't growing. I think that was the answer to that. I might be wrong, but I think that was my understanding. I think the changes that have been made were the result of the case that the council made, and while I'm no happy with the ANIC ward being split up like that at all, I think that we've done as best we could, and we stood up to what we believed, stood up for what we believed in. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's just been said, and I think it would be futile to go back and, without a case that was worth presenting. But I think what David Mitchell's suggesting, that we, could write to them and explain that while we're not formally objecting, we don't like the situation. I think it'd be good to have that on record for, our constituents that have been disenfranchised and lost their heritage. At least they would then see the council, hasn't just rolled over and put its hands up. And I don't know whether or not, if there was a future boundary, reallocation, whether what we put in place now would be beneficial to have, for that in the future. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but I would suggest, yes, we followed the idea of, writing to them and saying we accept it, but we don't accept it willingly. Just, thank you.
No, that's okay, folks. I think Councillor Mackay.
Thank you very much. I often talk about politics not being a sprint, but being a marathon. And I continue to believe that. And I think this is a good example of what David suggested actually being on the record, because I fully agree with Leader, and that is that we will be here, if not the next cycle, certainly the cycle after that. And I think it would be advisable for the generations that come after us to ensure that we are aware that we have that as a matter of our record within the council, so that they always have that to be able to refer to. Thank you.
Councillor Canning.
Yeah, there's quite a lot been said by Leader and fellow ward members, and I can't really add much to that, you know, but just to express my disappointment along with fellow ANIC members, that we are where we are, but I agree with everything in terms of recommendations that have been made.
No, yeah, let David in to explain the next step. Thanks.
Well, I was just going to suggest what we'll actually do, if that's the agreed position of council, is we'll build it into the minute, and then it's a matter of record for all time coming, and we'll include a copy of the letter in the minute, in the letter confirming we're not formally objecting, which is all they want to know, but highlighting as per the minute that the council still has certain reservations about this in terms of the linkage, the suitability, and the fact that we may be wrong, but we anticipate you'll be back at this sooner rather than later because of the anticipated population growth, to which their answer is they can only take account of what's there now, and they don't look at that, believe it or not, that was in the parameters as well. So we'll build it into the minute so it's always there for council and for the public record, and we'll send a copy of the minute and highlight the points in the covering letter, confirming no objection, but with some reservations remaining.
Thanks, David. We okay, folks? There's no further input. Well, thanks everyone for coming along. Before everybody, I know that some people have to leave, but Blair's going to give us a presentation for discussion on the recycling proposals. So I was going to ask for a break, but I don't think we need a break. We've only been here a few minutes. So if Blair could kindly set things up. If anybody needs to go for a comfort break, then is 5 minutes enough time for you to set up, Blair? 5 minutes, folks, so say past.
Ian, would you mind stopping the recording, please?
Thank you.